Hello there, my name is Shane Pleasance and I am an addictions expert from the deep south of New Zealand, and I wanted to we take those things off because they make me look so good. I wanted to talk about it, just a minor factual inaccuracy in one of Dr. Jordan Peterson's speeches where he talks about alcohol withdrawal. He talks about a hangover being alcohol withdrawal. Now this is probably seemingly nitpicking, and I don't want to nitpick the great man's arguments at all. I've really enjoyed watching his development and the incredibly positive impact that he's having upon the world, and it's been wonderful to observe. But this particular inaccuracy, he talks about drinking even though you know you're going to get the hangover, and then the hangover being the signs of alcohol dependence. Now, and as a result of alcohol dependence, the hangover is the feelings of withdrawal. Now, they're two distinctly different medical conditions: the hangover and alcohol withdrawal. Now, the hangover itself, most of us experienced it. Hopefully, not as much now as when we were younger. But a hangover isn't as well understood. The actual psychopathology of the hangover isn't as well understood as most people would think. There's probably a whole bunch of different components that lead to the development of a hangover. As I say, most of us have experienced it: physical symptoms, headache, nausea, feeling generally unwell, malaise, dry mouth, dizziness. We sometimes might have psychological symptoms of fatigue, anxiety, there's jangly nerves, and just generally feel unwell, and that can last for several hours sometimes. Now that the development of hangover is actually not all that well understood. Most people are going to be commenting, and please do comment, that it is due to dehydration, and that's actually not as well validated as we thought it was. It probably is a component, but there's a whole bunch of things. It's acetaldehyde, which is some of the early development of alcohol. You'll see acetaldehyde as it metabolizes. You can sometimes see that ruddy flush, the red flush for people. There's probably a degree of fatigue that the people develop as a result of alcohol. People say you'll have a big night on the booze and you'll have a good 10-hour sleep. But for most of you that have actually done that, you'll wake up feeling fatigued. And the reason for that is that alcohol itself, the impact that it has on receptors, that it impedes one of the particular phases of sleep. I think it's a delta sleep. And delta sleep's responsible for restorative sleep. So you might have good 10 hours sleep, but wake up feeling exhausted because the alcohol has prevented your brain from actually going through that restorative sleep phase. It has impacts on the immune system, metabolic acidosis, and also some of the additives that are in alcohol can make a difference. It's not all that well understood, and it's probably worth exploring. And of course, the fatigue itself makes you feel crook, as we say here in New Zealand. Now, alcohol withdrawal, on the other hand, is quite a different phenomenon. To go into withdrawal, you normally have to have a degree of alcohol dependence, of physical dependence. Now, it's not easy to become physically dependent on alcohol, despite what people may tell you, or despite what you may see. Becoming physically dependent takes a little bit of effort. The process of physical dependence is neuroadaptation. So, alcohol itself binds neuroreceptors. Alcohol comes into the brain, a whole bunch of GABA receptors in the brain. GABA receptors tend to be the ones that are associated with alcohol, and that's where the binding happens. And regular and repeated use of alcohol, the GABA receptors become accustomed to having the substance there, and because of that becoming accustomed, you don't get the effect that you were hoping for. The effect of the alcohol diminishes. So you need to increase either the frequency or the amount. And that's indicative of the development of tolerance of alcohol. And alcohol withdrawal syndrome is generally the reverse of that. So if you stop feeding those GABA receptors, they start screaming out, and that tends to be an alcohol withdrawal. And the reason that I wanted to make this video is that alcohol withdrawal in and of itself is an incredibly important medical phenomenon, as distinct from a hangover. most substances that have the potential for neuroadaptation therefore have the ability to cause dependence. But pretty much all of those other substances, your opiates, obviously cannabis, the withdrawal symptom, withdrawals phenomenon with cannabis is relatively light. Not the synthetic cannabis necessarily, but ordinary full-fat cannabis. Opiate withdrawal, absolutely. People are going to grizzle and they're going to moan and they're going to feel generally unwell and have flu-like symptoms. But it doesn't have the potential risk that alcohol withdrawal has. Alcohol withdrawal potentially has a risk for, can be fatal. So what we would advocate, if you believe you or somebody else is showing the signs of alcohol dependence, I would strongly recommend, and they're looking to stop, I would strongly recommend that they seek medical advice. The alcohol withdrawal syndrome itself, so never go cold turkey. If you're not in a position to seek medical support, don't go cold turkey. So don't just stop drinking your booze. Wean yourself off, preferably over a week or so, if not longer. If you're able to do that, taper it off. And that allows the neuroadaptation to reverse itself, ostensibly. Medical advice, they will replace, by and large, the gold standard tends to be diazepam. They will replace the alcohol, and the effect on the brain that would normally be there from alcohol, that will be replaced with diazepam, which is a medium to long-acting benzodiazepine, and then they will then taper that off, as you would have done alcohol over the period of 5 to 10 days usually. And that might be supplemented with some other medication as well. Thiamine can be very useful in alcohol withdrawal. Often if people are drinking too much and too often, alcohol impedes the brain's ability to absorb vitamin B1, which is thiamine, and that can sometimes lead to confusion, memory issues, and although that, of course, that might be a symptom of alcohol use itself, cognitive impairment, whilst intoxicated, the use of thiamine can reverse that, and I've seen that happen really very quickly. Thiamine injection, and you can bring someone back from the fairies. So yeah, seek medical advice. It's important. Delirium tremens is potentially a risk, and of course the risk of seizure. So love watching The Professor. I've really it's been a fascinating journey, and I can't wait to see what we get next. It's been great watching objectivists wrestle with the phenomenon of Dr. Peterson and his success, and I think objectivists have a lot to learn about his God damn it needs done stance with regards the impact upon the world. So yeah, enjoy. I'd love to meet Dr. Peterson, great fan down here in Deep South, and let's join in with his work. Let's be good to each other, and let's continue to improve the world. Let's do it one person at a time. Hey, comment, like, subscribe. Love to hear from you. Love to hear your experiences, any questions, any factual inaccuracies. The best state that we can be in, best state I found that I can be in, is in a state of continual learning. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'd love to know it. Hey, look forward to hearing from you. All the best. Take care of each other.